Hello and welcome to the Squared Circle Psychobabble. My name is Michael Valenti. This is Ralph Valenti for unbiased conversations in AEW, WWE, NXT, and New Japan Pro Wrestling. Subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. So, our most interesting week when it comes to the ratings war, Ralph. AEW wins the 18-49 rating, but NXT for the first time in 8 weeks beats AEW in the overall viewership. So, to run this by quick, AEW in the 18-49 demo get a 0.39, number 5 in the overall night, whereas NXT, they were number 13 overall, and they finished with a 0.30 in the demographic, but a total viewership of 913,000 over AEW's 823,000. So twist this any way you want, because, you know, there's people that are talking in AEW's favor. There's those taking it in NXT's favor. Me personally, I say the fans win.
I definitely agree with that. I mean, I was just about to say it doesn't matter because both shows were good. I'm not surprised at all about AEW winning the demographic because they've won that, I think, essentially since the beginning of this whole Wednesday Night War.
They haven't lost yet.
And that specific genre of wrestling, what they're showing, and the type of product that they're putting out there is really geared towards, you know, individuals within that specific demographic. With NXT, you're getting a more traditional type of professional wrestling program. Mm-hmm. So it's not surprising, in the very least to me, that AEW continues to win that demographic. I wouldn't expect NXT to really come close to that unless they were to change something, you know, drastically to their programming. But as long as they're remaining competitive and as long as they're, you know, especially like this past week, winning in certain viewership or ratings, I can't say them making any type of drastic change where they actually are competing for that specific demographic. Now, of course, it's disheartening to them, I'm sure, that they aren't, you know, attracting more of that demographic. But, you know, as long as you're able to compete against AEW, I think that's fine. The one bad note, I guess, that I would consider if I was NXT or WWE for that matter, is they had to work really hard to win the viewership this week. Mm-hmm. It was promoted since Monday night, where they've had week after week where you've had the invasion angle that you've been kind of working. You had Triple H go on Raw, essentially kind of tease that Kevin Owens might show up. We know he didn't show up, but there was that. He also was the one that was really closing the show on Monday night saying, you know, bring anybody you want. Anybody can show up. And they had to bring out the big guns. They had to bring out Becky Lynch, Seth Rollins, the Revival, some high-profile individuals, especially Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins. And did they win the viewership? Yeah, they did. They had to work really hard to do it, and they had to bring in some really top-tier talent to do it as well.
Right, and I think what most people are seeing when they look at the overall ratings is that the one demographic that NXT actually beat AEW in was 50 plus.
Not surprised.
So, like you said, it's a traditional type of show, unlike AEW, that they're catering to all different types of genres of wrestling, different styles of wrestling. And you definitely saw that tonight or on Wednesday night for AEW Dynamite. Honestly, I agree with you. I thought both shows were good. I thought there was a lot of good that came out of both shows. I also think there's some criticism that could be made for both shows, and we are going to be talking about that. So, you know, let us know in the comments what you guys think, which show is better, AEW or NXT. But let's start with AEW Dynamite. They won the ratings for the 18-49 demo. So we start off with the match, Rey Fenix versus Nick Jackson. Nick Jackson's first singles match in almost 5 years.
Yeah.
I actually like this match. I'm not one that typically likes the Lucha Libre style or the Spot Fest, but I think Nick Jackson did a pretty decent job selling throughout this match. I think the choreography of the match flowed pretty well. And, you know, there was one really good segment here where they did the Canadian Destroyer, and then it was a pin that got kicked out, and then Nick Jackson put it into a sharpshooter. I like that whole set of this match. Rey Fenix gets the win. Nick Jackson trying to shake hands afterwards, but Rey Fenix blows him off. Yep. I liked how that goes, and really furthering this Young Bucks versus Lucha Brothers dynamic that we could be seeing in, you know, the months to come. So what'd you think of this match?
Yeah, I mean, and when I think of this match, it wasn't anything that I didn't expect. I figured it was going to be fast-paced, high spots, high impact, move after move after move. Granted, there was some psychology and some storytelling in there, but this match really, to me, defines what the new guard or the new breed or whatever you want to call it, your newer fan base. This is really what is kind of geared towards that specific demographic or that age group, whatever bracket they fall into. They're not necessarily as concerned with a story being told or as much as concerned with the psychology of it. And, more of the traditionalists within the business, no matter who they are, whether they're a fan or a critic, they may not enjoy this type of match. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good match. Not necessarily my style, but I respect it for what it was. It was a good athletic competition where the two guys really went head to head. Like I said, a lot of high spots, a lot of athleticism throughout the match. So no complaints here. Everybody's talking about it, saying it was a great match. I thought it was good. There were no issues with it. Not my type of match. I'm more of the slower paced build towards certain things. My biggest complaint when you have matches like this where they're going, move after move after move, it's kind of like, you're not building towards those big spots. And I know some people are into that type of stuff, and it's not right or wrong. It's just a personal preference of mine.
Right.
No gripes with the match. I thought it was fine. Both are definitely very talented, especially Rey Fenix. So it was fine. It was
now,
good.
I will say, if this was the main event of the show, I think I'd be a lot more critical of this match because of the things you bring up. But because this is the first match of the night,
yeah,
that has to be geared towards getting the crowd,
yeah, absolutely,
riled up, ready to go. And this crowd was hot to the point where people are complaining about audio issues throughout the show because the crowd was just too loud, audio wise, and it actually drowned out the commentary. So I'm okay with that. Let a spot fest open the show because it gets the crowd, ready to go.
Yeah.
So I have no problem with that. The next match is a women's match. Britt Baker versus Hikaru Shida, number 1 versus number 2 in the rankings. You would think this is eventually a number 1 contenders match for the women's championship against Riho. Hikaru Shida beats Britt Baker. I thought it was a solid match, but I think this is part of the problem with the women's division right now. A lot of people are criticizing the women's division right now. And I think the biggest problem with it is, Riho, everyone likes Riho, but at the same time, she's still 98 pounds. And Britt Baker, I think a lot of people think of her as the face of this division, and she's just not quite connecting with the audience, and she's not quite getting those outstanding matches I think people want out of her. And honestly, I think Hikaru Shida is really the person they should be pushing here in the women's division. I hope this is the path that they're heading to with this win, and they're actually righting, I shouldn't say a wrong, but getting them into the right way and get Hikaru Shida to be the women's champion eventually. Get her to have some good matches and build this division around her.
Yeah. Granted, with AEW, there certainly have been some good matches in the women's division specifically, but there really hasn't been too much, at least from my perspective, that people could get invested in. And I think when AEW was first formed, and based on some of the names that were announced, I think that a lot of people felt like the women's division was going to be one of their strong suits. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think over the last several weeks or even months, we found that, I don't know if it's necessarily the booking or just some of the women not really living up to expectation based on what we've seen in the matches so far. But I find it very hard to get into some of the women's matches as of late on AEW, just because there's not much for me to get invested in. Right. There's not much emotion for me to
There's no story in a lot of...
Yeah. So, I can't really put my finger on what it is. It seems like the matches are good just for the matches themselves. But as I've said before, I always use this example. You can have the Yankees play the Red Sox, and you're always going to have that emotional element that's going to be in the games, which is going to make it more meaningful to those fans. But if you just have two good baseball teams play against each other, if they're in smaller markets where there's not as much on the line, it's kind of like, okay, anybody can enjoy the game, but you're not really lost in it. You're not invested in it. I think that's what we're seeing that's hurting the women's division.
I think also what's hurting the women's division is the fact that it is heavily have a lot of international women on this roster. And I bet you visa issues are part of this problem, where we're not seeing them as consistently to build a storyline, to build, a reason for them to have matches other than just kind of just throwing these matches together. They have they have Shana, they have Hikaru Shida, Emi Sakura, Riho, all these other international women that I'm probably B. Priestley, Sadie Gibbs. So I'm sure that probably has a problem with this too, because it's like, well, we can't put them on the show because we can't get their visas situated. But I think now, once they figure all that out, once they get that all situated, we'll see them more. And this women's division will be in a much better shape, let's say 6 months from now, than what we're seeing right now. It's still in its infancy, a lot to work on. But I think right now, Britt Baker as the top woman on the roster may not be the right answer. You could build that for the future, but I think right now, focus on Hikaru Shida, and I think this is the start of that. So.
Yeah, and the other interesting thing, too, is they do have some women that you would think that would be booked as more or less monsters. Awesome Kong, they're trying to do something with her. I don't think she was on this past week of Dynamite, which was a little surprising because they have kind of highlighted her over the last month or so.
This would have been a good spot after Baker loses to have Awesome Kong come out and do the hair cutting thing with Brandy and at least set up a storyline with those two. But
and even Nyla Rose, it's kind of like, two people that you would expect to be like the Goliath to David, with Riho being the smaller woman in the division, but they're not really doing that right now, and I think that's kind of hurting it.
Right. So after this, we did get a small little video package for the Dark Order where they show this guy getting, he's at a subway with his glasses and he gets knocked over, his glasses break, goes onto the subway all down in the dumps, and he watches this video off a billboard on the subway, and it's promoting Join the Dark Order. I like the video package. It's 8 weeks too late. Why didn't we get this 8 weeks ago when we were trying to figure out who the heck these guys are? Why should we care about them? Yeah. This was a great package. I like the Dark Order in ring. I think every match I've seen so far, they've actually worked the tag team match the best.
I'm not saying traditional tag team match.
Right. I'm not saying they're the best tag team. I just think they've worked the best tag team match. But yet we have no reason to get every time they come out, they get no reaction until the matches start, and they just get their own heat through the matches. Yep. Get them a story, and this whole cult-like thing, I think, could be the start of that.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem too, where even we talked about this on some of our first episodes when we were covering AEW. Not everybody has the time to go and invest in looking up these guys and seeing who they were or what they did before AEW was formed. AEW has to use video packages like this, or however they decide to do it, on their programming on Dynamite to show people this is what this person or this is what they did before they were in AEW. This is why you should care about them. Yep. They haven't necessarily done that with Kenny Omega. They haven't done it with the Dark Order. They haven't done it with some of the other people. And I think that certainly hurt them in some cases, especially here with the Dark Order. Not everybody's going to spend time to go and watch Being the Elite on YouTube. Just not everyone has the time to do it. Not everybody has the interest to do it. So they have to do a better job, in my opinion, of highlighting these people, no matter who it is, on Dynamite where people are actually watching it so they can get invested in the product. And the character.
Totally agree. So let's move on to this Dynamite Dozen Battle Royal, which to me, I think was the low point of the show. I was not a fan of this Battle Royal at all. I'm sure I'm going to get criticism in the comments for this, but as before the match even started, you knew where this was going. You knew Paige and MJF were going to win.
Well, you can look at who was in the ring, and this goes back to this is where I want to highlight the point I always make. When you look at your Marco Stunts and when you look at your Orange Cassidys, there has to be a certain level of believability to the elements of the match. You had Pentagon in there, who could certainly have won, but they got rid of him early. You had MJF, who one would assume they're not going to derail him losing a match like this, and Hangman Page, who's one of the more high-profile guys. You can't convince me that Orange Cassidy, Marco Stunt, Sonny Kiss, any of those, Jimmy Havoc, those people just aren't going to win a match like this while those guys are present in the ring. It's just not happening. So, I agree. There were certain elements of this match I liked, certain elements I didn't like. I didn't like the fact that MJF, while he was worked the match well, he was definitely able to get heat based on some of the people he eliminated. I thought he manipulated the match well, and I liked the way they did that. I didn't like the fact that he was put in this match coming off of his great week last week. The promo he cut, the whole segment with Chris Jericho and Cody, probably the most talked about segment last week when you compare AEW and NXT. Everybody was talking about how great MJF was and how great he did.
Yeah.
And they didn't necessarily follow up on that.
I wouldn't agree with that. I mean, they did what they could to get heat on him. He eliminated Marco Stunt. He eliminated Sonny Kiss.
Yeah.
He eliminated Orange Cassidy, right? Or was that Billy Gunn? I can't remember.
No, I think he eliminated
Orange Cassidy too. So he eliminated all the ones that the crowd were really behind. And, also eliminating Jungle Boy to be the final two with Hangman Page. I thought in that regards, and he pulled the Jerry the King Lawler hiding under the ring thing, which maybe I missed something. He was hanging from the ropes after being thrown over. Then Wardlow comes out for the save. And then he hid. At what point did he get back into the ring, slide out, and get under the ring?
Well, here's the other thing.
I may have missed that.
In a battle royal, now in this match, did they have to go over the top to be eliminated? They did.
Yes.
Okay, so he must have went through the middle rope. But yeah, either way, I didn't necessarily mind. I liked how he manipulated the match. I liked that a lot.
Of course, I agree.
He was able to earn heat that way. The thing that probably there were two spots specifically that really bothered me about the match. One, knowing that there are a lot of smaller individuals in AEW, and that's something that people have certainly been critical about. And I'm not saying you have to agree with that and say, every wrestler has to be of a certain size or stature to be successful, but it's just pointing out the obvious. They don't have a lot of meat on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
Billy Gunn dwarfed everybody in the ring. MJF is fairly big guy, but he dwarfed everybody to the point where they did the spot where, if everybody's ganging up on the Big Show or the big guy in a Royal Rumble or some match like that, they throw everybody off like they're King Kong. They actually did that spot with him, and he's, by all traditional standards of what a professional wrestler is supposed to be, he's not like a big guy.
Right.
The last spot that probably bothered me more than anything is, one would assume, because MJF is a heel, he's going to more or less play the chicken shit heel role now that he's got Wardlow with him. Now, at the end of the match, him and Adam Page were trying to get after each other, and the refs were breaking them up, and Wardlow comes out, and he's just standing on the floor, not really intervening, just standing there like a schmuck.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, are you the muscle? Like, are you the guy that's supposed to protect your guy MJF? Like, get up there, move the pipsqueak referees out of the way, show everybody you're this dominant force, and go after Hangman Page. I mean, that just goes back to like traditional wrestling, like 101, like when Diesel or when Psycho Sid was with HBK, like they didn't let anybody get their hands on Shawn Michaels. They were the guys that were at the front of that.
True.
I wanted to see Wardlow step in, and he just kind of stood there and didn't do much of anything. It's like, if you're going to be the muscle, assume the role and be the muscle.
Right. I mean, at least they didn't have him get beat up or pushed out, at least to that regard. So I'm not going to be so critical on it. And again, the goal was made that MJF as the heel became one of the final two. Hangman Page on his road to redemption, he became one of the final two. So we're going to get this match for the Diamond Ring, which we're not sure what exactly it's for. Does this end up being a number one contenders match? Does this, is this their mid-card title, or is this going to be a prop in a storyline between whoever wins and whoever their next opponent is? I mean, you can honestly use MJF with the ring and put that on Cody, because Cody used to do the Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
With a Ring of Honor. So maybe they do that. But next segment was the Jericho segment, where he announced that he will have Le Celebration for the Champion.
Yep.
And he couldn't say sorry. So he had Jake Hager say that he was sorry. Then SCU comes out saying that, Scorpio Sky pins Jericho.
Yep.
Jericho's like, you know what? You want a one-on-one match? I'll give it to you for the title. Scorpio Sky's like, I don't think I deserve the title shot, but you're getting it anyway. And then we get this, big brawl at the end where Dustin Rhodes comes out, the Inner Circle comes out, the Jurassic Express comes out.
Yeah.
Best part of this, Marco Stunt comes in for the save, and Jericho just punches him out in less than a second. But I liked the exchange between Sky and Jericho. The brawl I wasn't too upset with. It was a little convoluted, but at least advanced some storylines with Scorpio Sky, getting beat up by the Inner Circle. So, that could be a problem next week for the AEW Championship match. You have Dustin Rhodes getting his hit back from when Sammy Guevara and Jake Hager broke his arm or broke his wrist in the car at the contract signing. And a possible tease for Luchasaurus versus Jake Hager. Sign me up for that match, please.
Yeah, so there were some things I liked and some things I didn't like. I thought the segment as a whole went really long, which, okay, I guess it was fine. The pull apart brawl, certain segments of it I liked. I liked the fact that yes, we are probably going to get Jake Hager versus Luchasaurus. I'm all in for that. Scorpio Sky really held his own on the mic. I thought I loved the segment between him and Jericho going back and forth. I just felt like it went long.
It might have been a little long, yeah, but
gotta fill the 2 hours somehow. Jericho's a star. Aside from MJF, there's not really any other people within wrestling that are going to be able to do what he does on the mic. So it is what it is. It's fine.
So after that, we got a squash match where Luchasaurus beat Peter Avalon in 2 moves. And then we got this backstage promo package with Kenny Omega doing a 10-pound bench press, saying that, his redemption starts next week, promoting his match against Pac. The rematch in Chicago. Last time they were in Chicago, he lost at All Out. We have the rematch next week. It was what it was. I mean, the promo itself wasn't bad. Can we put more weight on the bar, please?
Yeah, and one's tonality is certainly suggestive of how serious they're taking a situation. And this is always my critique on him. You're going against a guy like Pac, similar to how he was going against Moxley. Can you try to at least convince people that you're taking it serious? I get it. You're a video game guy. You're laid back, but show a little freaking enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Like, put weight on the bar. Act like you're actually trying to make a comeback. Make people care about you. Don't act like a goofball all the time. That's all I'm saying. Like, I get it. He's talented. He's one of the best in the world. I'm not denying that. But if you're trying to build towards a match that's as important as a match against Pac, who would assume, if Pac wins that, he's going to be elevated to like, a championship title match or not far off based on his record. You'd want people to know that that's going to be a meaningful match. And he's like benching 10 pounds with Nakazawa standing there and treating everything like it's a big joke. It's like, just treat it a little more seriously. Make people get invested in the match.
Right.
Sell it. That's all I'm saying.
Right. And I mean, like I said, the promo wasn't bad. The
delivery, the tonality was suggestive that it wasn't meant to be taken serious.
Right. The bench, the bar and the weight on the bar was just a little like, seriously, you're working out and we know how fit you are. So but after that, we did get the match Santana and Ortiz versus Private Party, a tribute to Matt Travis, who passed away last week.
Yeah.
Both of these guys have connections to him. I thought this match was really good. In fact, I'll say that this was Private Party's best match in AEW. They seem to have had a good flow. It didn't seem like if something went wrong, they kind of paused like they have in the past. Santana and Ortiz did a really good job getting heat, establishing a hot tag for when Isaiah Cassidy got in there for the hot tag. The crowd erupted.
Yep.
This is how tag team matches should be done.
Yes. This is why tags and tag matches are important, because when you build to that point, when you have it where the fans are clamoring for that other individual to get into the ring and they pop, you're invested.
Yep.
They've got you in the palm of your hand. That's why tags are important. That's why we stress that on here.
Right. And like I said, great match. Unfortunately, it did come with a little bit of a huge botch. Another ref botch where the count just magically stops because someone missed their spot. Why can't these refs just count? And Private Party was supposed to win anyway, so just count.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the strangest things. I mean, these guys have wrestled a good majority of their professional life, and you got to imagine the referees, they're there for a reason. They're there to do their job. They're there to count. The wrestlers are there to wrestle and have the match. And it's just crazy to think that week after week in at least one match, it gets screwed up.
Right.
It shouldn't be happening.
No, I agree.
Miscommunication.
Right. So whatever the reason may be, I know it's only 8 weeks in, something that they can easily correct, but obviously the second time in 3 weeks where an obvious ref count botch happens.
Yeah.
That's definitely one of the big alarming things that could happen here on this show. But main event, absolutely delivered. Darby Allin versus Jon Moxley. Moxley comes out from the crowd after Darby Allin comes out in a body bag. Before Moxley gets into the ring, suicide dive out of nowhere. They start, fighting outside. That finally goes into the ring. They do an amazing job for 20 minutes. And it ends with an awesome paradigm shift from the second rope. Darby looked awesome in this. Moxley looks awesome in this. Can't say anything wrong about this match whatsoever.
No, I love this match, and I know we talked earlier, and you said that your favorite match from both the shows, I think, was the Revival versus the Undisputed Era. This was actually my favorite match from between the two shows. I love the dynamic whenever you have a smaller guy who's going up against the more muscle-bound, aggressive guy like Moxley was. I thought it was a great match. I love the spots. I love the way it flowed. There wasn't too much high spots. It built towards the end. I love the fact that it started fast where Darby Allin did the suicide dive right out of the ring. They brawled around a little bit. So I thought this match was awesome. Moxley, to me, continues to reinvent himself and be the hottest wrestler in professional wrestling since he's left WWE. And, I know a lot, there are certain people who give Moxley a hard time for the way he left WWE and for him saying that, he was held back and all of that. And it's hard to say he wasn't, because he would have good matches in WWE, but not to this extent and not over the course of, every match. It seems like it's just better and better and better.
Right.
Whether it's here or New Japan Pro Wrestling, he's doing awesome.
Now, can you see Darby Allin as a top guy in AEW?
Yes. I think he's at that level now. And again, he's one of those guys that just because of the character, because it's so different and because his specific character can speak to society, like a certain segment of society right now. Like there are people that are going to connect with his character, and it's so different and it's so fresh and it's so
you saw it in the crowd. There were shots of a little kid that had his face paint. A woman in the front row had her face paint. They cut to her a couple times. He's super over with the crowd, and they didn't really do many video packages with this guy. It was just all in the matches that he's having, putting him in these high profile matches with Cody, with Jericho, with Moxley. And every time he's in the ring, he delivers.
Yeah, and not only that, but even when he's losing to these high-profile guys, I mean, if this were WWE and a guy like this, let's say it was like Andrade losing week after week, the automatic thing people would say is he's getting buried. I don't get that feeling that although he's lost a lot of high-profile matches, one, he's looked good. Two, I haven't heard a lot of people, if any, say, oh, well, they're burying him. No. It seems like even if he's losing, people still have a positive outlook on him.
Well, I think part of it too is, one, they go into the match assuming he's going to lose anyway, because, why should he lose to Cody? Why should he lose to Jericho? Why should he beat Cody? Why should he beat Jericho? Why should he beat Moxley?
Yeah.
But they also know from, his time in Evolve, his time at Defy Wrestling, Northeast Wrestling, all around the independents, how good this kid can be.
Yeah.
And I get it. He's not exactly the prototype of, big bodybuilder shape, but we're in a different era of wrestling now where you don't necessarily need to be 6'7", 303 pounds, Hulkamania running wild on you.
Yeah.
You could be 175 pounds skateboarding and still look good in a match.
Yeah. And I think the big thing with him is, despite all the time he spent on the independent scene, there's no secret that if you go and watch a WWE show or you watch like professionals at an AEW show, that style is very different than what you're going to see on a more traditional indie scene.
Yeah.
Darby Allin is a really good blend of, he still does the spots that he's known for than when he was wrestling on the indie scene, but he's able to adjust his approach and adjust his style so it complements like a professional like Moxley.
Yes.
So I can't say enough. I love this match from the second it started until the end of it. I thought it was really good.
Right. So let's move on to NXT, and they had I think a very good go-home show tonight for War Games and Survivor Series. Starts off with Becky Lynch coming into Full Sail, cutting a promo, calling out Shayna Baszler, but it's Rhea Ripley that actually answers.
Yep.
You want to fight? Let's fight. Ref comes out. They have a great match. Unfortunately, it ends with a double disqualification thanks to Jessamine Duke, Marina Shafir, and Shayna Baszler coming out, attacking them. Then we got, people from SmackDown, people from Raw coming out. We got this stare down of Io Shirai and Kairi Sane. I love this segment. Hate the ending. Yeah. And they did this in the next match too with Ricochet and Matt Riddle. And they've been doing this a lot lately where we need to book this match, make them look good, but protect them at the same time. I got it. No contest.
Yep.
Double disqualification. Yep. They've been going to that well way, way too much. And I understand why they didn't want Rhea losing or Becky losing, but it would have been nice if we had a finish here.
Yeah, definitely would have been nice. I think the one thing that I do want to see after all of this is done and after Survivor Series and War Games is over with, I don't want to see the NXT guys going to Raw and SmackDown week after week, because that's when it's not going to feel special anymore.
Yep.
This specific time over the last month or 3 weeks or however long it's been since Saudi Arabia, where NXT invaded SmackDown, it's been fresh, it's been good. Don't oversaturate it like you oversaturate everything else. It will lose its meaning. Keep the shows their own separate thing, especially NXT. NXT has been fine for years. I don't want to see them keep convoluting the shows after Survivor Series.
Right. So after this match, we did have what was supposed to be Kona Reeves versus Matt Riddle, but before Kona Reeves enters, Ricochet pulls something out of his new tag team partners playbook and Randy Orton coming out of nowhere and just kicking him. Ricochet's like, I'm in the ring. Matt Riddle comes out and we get the same exact segment, but this time with the men. So Ricochet and Matt Riddle have a match impromptu. Leads to Riddle actually getting the win by pinfall, but then we have Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura coming out. Eventually, Roderick Strong comes out. Finn Balor comes out. I thought this was a decent segment. At least there was a finish to this match. And overall, I have no problem with this. At least there was a finish. And everybody connected in some way, shape, or form. So you have Balor attacking Riddle. You have Strong attacking Nakamura.
Yep.
So I have no problem with this one. Good match. Yep. Next is my pick for match of the night, the Undisputed Era, Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish against the Revival. I hope the tag team division in AEW took notes on this. This is how a tag team match should be done, folks. They did everything. Storytelling, they did high spots, they did physicality, they put everything into about a 20, 30-minute match.
Yep. Awesome
match. I can't find anything wrong with this. The right team won. Fish and O'Reilly get the win with the high-low.
Yeah,
awesome.
And this is what I was alluding to. So this match, much like a traditional professional wrestling match, started out slow. It built up and it built up and it built up, and then it dropped back down. You had hot tags and everything else. High spots mean more when they come from out of nowhere or you're building towards it. So, when I talked about earlier about the Rey Fenix and the, was it Nick Jackson?
Yeah.
That match, it was good, but it was very much move after move after move. With this match, it was very much more of your traditional professional wrestling match where it was slowly built up to certain spots. This was definitely a great match. And, this is exactly why when you were talking about the demographics, 55 and over, this is probably a match they'd look at and be like, you know what, that's a damn good professional wrestling match. More of a traditional, straightforward professional wrestling match. Not to say one's better than the other, or this one's right, or that one's wrong. It's just different, and that's fine.
Right. So after that, we got Kaylee Ray and Dakota Kai in a match that was, it was a decent match. Kaylee Ray wins, but then we get another setup where people from SmackDown, people from NXT, people from Raw, and actually, this is actually where the Io Shirai, Kairi Sane stare down was. I said it was earlier, but now that I'm thinking about it, this is actually where it was. And this was a really cool moment where Io Shirai, who has become a darker character since Kairi Sane went up to the main roster. Kairi Sane, obviously with the Kabuki Warriors, she has gotten a darker character now to the point where now she looks like a Bella twin. So they're staring at each other like, that's different. And I did like that little stare down moment. So, and at the end, Nikki Cross is the one that stands tall in this. So, I mean,
the twisted sister of NXT.
Yep. And did you notice throughout this night, everyone that was involved in the invasion for both Raw and SmackDown had runs in NXT?
Yes.
So I wasn't sure if anyone picked up on that, but I definitely picked up on that. Every single person. So that's why no Daniel Bryan, no AJ Styles, no Luke Gallows, Anderson, The Miz. It was all strictly former NXT guys.
Oh, well, Miz was a coach.
And Dan, but I'm talking about Full Sail NXT.
Yeah, and there's very, very few people when you look at the main roster now that didn't go through NXT.
Yeah.
There's only a handful of them.
Right.
Randy Orton, the people you just named.
So, but they could have used those guys, and it might have even made this even better. But I think the fact that they only used the former NXT people, I think made that a little bit better. A nice detail that I'm not sure anybody really picked up on. But Viking Raiders and Forgotten Sons have a decent match here, where the Viking Raiders pick up the win there. Good match. And then we have the main event, a pretty awesome ladder match, in my opinion. Adam Cole versus Dominik Dijakovic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, anything that you usually see in a ladder match. I know we had a ladder match last week for the War Games advantage, so that was kind of a problem with me that they, did the same thing, copy,
I agree.
Copy paste. But I did like the finish in this. They're both on the ladder. Adam Cole hits Dijakovic in the head with the briefcase, and he just falls back into a ladder for Adam Cole to grab the briefcase. And then we get more invasion stuff. You got guys from SmackDown, guys from Raw, guys from NXT all over. A surprise from Drew McIntyre coming in here with an awesome Claymore kick. Keith Lee comes in and power bombs him. Then we get Seth Rollins. Tommaso Ciampa comes out and they have a stare down. I am going to say, I believe Seth Rollins is going to be turning on Team Raw, and I think this was the seed that planted that tonight.
Well, so there's a few things with this. One, I like the fact that the brawl at the end wasn't insulting. And by that, I mean, so many times you see at the end of Raw and SmackDown, the easiest way to fade to black or go to commercial is to have these brawls, and you get 250-pound men being held back by 150-pound referees, and it's not done well. They're set. You could tell when they're setting up for dive spots where they're just kind of standing there and looking, waiting for the guy to dive out of the ring. I like the way this was done because everything kind of flowed nicely. The spot with Keith Lee, where he dove over the top, that was done really well, and they both took out the respective groups. I don't know if I shouldn't say I feel bad for Seth. A part of me feels bad for Seth because it really is a reflection of how poorly WWE has booked him to the point where he's going back to NXT, because he was really one of the first guys to put NXT on the map.
Mm-hmm.
One of the bigger names to come out of there, especially because he was fairly well known on the independent scene as Tyler Black before he went to NXT in Ring of Honor. And to see him go back there and have people chant, "You're not cool" or "Seth's not cool."
Yeah.
It's a reflection of the fact that WWE can't make you care about their face characters.
Yeah.
You've seen that time and time again with what
he's not doing himself any justice with his Twitter.
And that was the second thing I was going to say. That's why I said only part of me wants to feel bad for him, because like CM Punk said, he's got to stay off Twitter, because the things he's said and the things he's done, as far as, the digs he's taken at Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay, talking about himself as the best wrestler in the world. It's just like, that's going to rub certain people the wrong way.
Right.
And now people are starting to push back against him when he was always one of the more respected guys, especially when he was, most noticed or most respected for his in-ring work.
Yes.
And people are starting to turn on him, which kind of sucks. But had a good face-off with him and Ciampa. I really like that spot. I look forward to that. Hopefully that turns into a match at some point further down the road.
Yep. We'll see what happens at Survivor Series, because at the time of this recording, we still don't know who's on Team NXT for the Survivor Series matches. Mm-hmm. We don't know who's the fourth person in the War Games match Saturday. And I think part of this problem is with the fact that NXT is involved in Survivor Series. It's a great thing that they're finally putting them on as a third brand. But when you have these two shows back to back, you're trying to push two shows, and NXT is like, well, we got to have these guys push for War Games, but they're also going to be on Survivor Series. So what are we going to do? It's hard to tell a story for two different shows when they have two different narratives.
Well, they kind of addressed that with Ciampa when he came out, because ultimately his goal is still going after the belt. Yes. He took out Adam Cole. So, thankfully they didn't overlook that subtle little thing. Yep. So there's still that. One of the things that I fear will happen, and I hope it doesn't, but we know that NXT is not going to win every single match.
No.
Well, I shouldn't say that, because last year SmackDown...
No, Raw won them all.
I was going to say SmackDown lost all the matches. Yeah. Raw won all of them. And granted, they didn't do anything with that. Just kind of did it for no reason.
Yeah.
So could they go all in on NXT? They can. I doubt they will. No. But I think NXT needs to win the high-profile match. They need to win the match between Raw and SmackDown, especially knowing that
in the Survivor Series matches,
correct.
you're saying.
Yeah. War Games is War Games. It doesn't matter, win or loss. Ultimately, when you have NXT going against the main card guys, I think NXT not only needs to look good, but they have to win that Survivor Series match.
What about the other triple threat matches? So, like, you have AJ, Roddy, and Nakamura, and Viking Raiders, Fish O'Reilly, New Day.
Yeah, I mean,
Shayna, Becky, Bayley. I think those three matches, each brand is going to win one. I would say AJ.
And that'll be like the tiebreaker.
Right. I would say AJ wins the mid-card titles. I say Bayley wins the women. And I say Fish and O'Reilly win the tag title.
Yeah.
Survivor Series matches. Brand supremacy, as they're calling it.
I'll tell you this much. Survivor Series does look like a good card.
Yep.
I'm not going to get my hopes up because with WWE, I always do whenever the card looks good, and they very rarely meet my expectations.
Yep.
But knowing that NXT's involved, Triple H is heavily involved, and that we're going to get, Adam Cole at least wrestling somebody on Survivor Series.
Yep. Either Pete Dunne, Damian Priest, or Killian Dane.
Right. It should deliver to a certain extent.
It should, but who knows? It's going to be a fun weekend, though. I'm very jealous of Chicago, though, as my closing note. So we have SmackDown Friday, War Games Saturday, Survivor Series Sunday,
AEW.
Raw Monday, and
AEW.
Dynamite on Wednesday. Yeah. Why can't NXT be on Wednesday? There's the real war.
Yeah.
Who gets the better attendance in Chicago Wednesday? But we know that's not happening. But let us know what you guys think of NXT on USA. Also on AEW Dynamite in the comments below. Don't forget to share this all over social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SCPB Podcast. And for the best conversations in AEW, WWE, NXT, and New Japan Pro Wrestling, subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications. For Ralph Valenti, my name's Michael Valenti. Thank you for watching the Squared Circle Psychobabble.